Okay. Hello. Sorry. I've been having a summer flu and it seems that it's still going on. So sorry about my voice. It might crackle a little bit today. So hello. Good evening. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. Just a sip of tea before we start. Let me try to get the lighting a little bit better. Because I do have a light here, but it seems that it's not as bright as I want it to be. I'm not sure if that did anything, if it's better or not, but let's go with that. Hopefully it will be okay. And hopefully sound-wise, it's okay also. So this is something I'm recreating today, or something like this, because I don't have the same magazine cut out, but another one. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Still a couple of more minutes, and then we'll start. Sorry again. Hopefully it will go okay and not like I'm going to be coughing the whole thing through the whole live. Well, I wanted to do something a little bit different with this one. So there is some layers or dimensional layers, let's say, because there's a lot of layers or flat layers in this spread, but a little bit different this time. So there's not these huge clusters that I normally build in my projects. A little sneak peek of something that's coming next month, but there's still a little bit because these little strips here are mounted with foam tape, so they're a little bit dimensional, but not the usual clusters. So there's just acrylic paints, some stamping, and then doodling, but mainly just ink stamps and acrylic paints and the magazine cutout. Like, hi Elaine! I was thinking of doing it with limited supplies, if that makes any sense, because I do use 6 acrylic paints and 1 stamp set and 1 like extra stamp and stuff. So there's still quite a lot, but still that was my goal, let's say, not to use like dozens and dozens of supplies in this make. 1 minute still, and then I'm going to start. I did hint that I'm going to share why I chose these colors, so maybe I'll just babble that one first. So there's like, I think I actually wrote 3 colors, but to be honest, there's 4. I didn't remember them correctly, but these are kind of the base colors in the spread, making up the colorful background, and also some of these self-made pattern papers on top. And for the reason why I chose those 4 is just I wanted something colorful. Usually I'm going with analogous, how do you say, like colors that are close to each other in a color wheel. But this time I chose kind of these candy or ice cream colors because I thought that they go nicely together. And even if I end up mixing any of those, well, these 2 make up a brownish color, but still they go all together. And then white, because I wanted to cover some up. You'll see that in a moment. And red. I guess this one is the most surprising choice of the 6, because when I was looking through the page, this was the detail that I added first. I wanted a little bit more contrast, and red was the first thing. Of course, I could have gone with black, but that seemed a little bit too harsh. So I wanted this vibrant color in here to create some contrast. So that's why I picked up the kind of fire engine red. But okay, now I'm just babbling about the colors. Let's actually get started. Let me move this aside for now. And we have just a blank piece of paper, and we are also off focus. Okay, now better. So first, these 4 colors. They are in the description box if you want the colors, and also in my blog post, but let me flip them quickly here. So they are all PaperArtsy paints. Any brand would do for obvious reasons, because I'm creating for PaperArtsy, so I'm using these. I also like because they are chalk acrylic, so they are matte. So I really like them. So Aqua, Duck, Egg, Lily the Pink, Captain Peacock, and Butter are the colors. And what I'm using to apply them with, or spread through the page, is just a palette knife. I'm first adding just some blobs of color here. Let's start, because those get soaked to the paper quite easily. So let's add a couple of colors here. I could use a brush too, but I really like the effect a palette knife creates. I've been favoring that lately, so I'm just using that. I kind of like this worn paint or worn wall kind of effect a palette knife creates. But of course, you could use brush or a brayer or a sponge. It just affects how the colors will look a little bit, but because there's stamping coming on top, it's not that big of a deal. But whatever just gets you creating or going. If you haven't tried using a palette knife to spread acrylic paint, give it a try. You might like it, or the effect it creates. Because these, like, places where there's not total coverage, I really like those. Gives it a little bit more, how do you say, look, texture, kind of a texture feel, even though there's not tangible texture, it's just the way it looks. Here we go. One way to prevent the colors from getting into a pile of mud is to let them dry. Just add one color and then another one, because if everything is wet, they get mixed more easily. But if you apply them one by one, you can just layer them, and acrylic paints dry really quickly, so it's easier also with those. But if you want to create these softer transitions, and especially if you're working with a color palette that always comes together, or like these neighboring colors, of course you can use wet and wet as well. Let me really quickly dry this one, because I'm stamping on top and I don't want my stamps to get all acrylic at this point. I'm guessing that's okay. I actually forgot to do the housekeeping first, so let me quickly add the link to the blog post to the chat in case you want to see the materials list at any point or see the photos of the sample project. So then some stamping. Let me show you the stamp set, like this header. What is this called? Packaging thing. Because I chose this stamp set. Well, it's PaperArtsy, but also I really like it because there's different kinds of background stamps in one set. Of course, if you have several different sets, that's also really plausible, or different manufacturers or anything. But I just wanted to point that out because I find it really handy for the set to have these really graphic kind of patterns, like these little X's or plus signs, and also of this kind of a vintagey looking script stamp. It's not often you get those in a one pack, or I haven't seen those. Not that I've seen every stamp set there is, but still. But again, this could be any brand or mix of different brands, or if you don't have a lot of stamps, you can just doodle to the background as well. Just use your own imagination and your own stash of supplies. And this could be some other color, sorry, than black, but black is kind of my go-to. It goes with anything, so also creates this a little bit of contrast. I'm just going around this sheet, but leaving some areas without anything. Sorry again. It seems that my voice gets irritated when I'm talking. Sorry. So I'm guessing that's okay for now. And well, why did I put that away? Because I'm needing to use it for this one as well. And the cling in this one is a little bit, well, not sticking that much anymore. So yeah, last time this one did the trick. So I added a little bit of water underneath, and now it seems to be holding in the acrylic block. Background kind of stamps I usually use without any acrylic block because it's just texture. But now I'm hoping to get good impressions of this flower, and that's why I'm using the acrylic block. Not a perfect impression, but it's okay. The flowers in the sample were also like this, but then I added some doodles and they were okay afterwards. This is a Carabelle Studio stamp, and unfortunately that company closed, but I've gotten this previously. It's a Fleurs de Azuline, I think the set is called. And why I chose this particular stamp is because of the size. I wanted these repeating elements to the background. Let me grab the sample for a second. So if I would have a teeny tiny flower here, most of all, hi Holly, sorry again. That would mean I would have to cover a lot area, but also I wanted this kind of a really big impact to the background. So that's why I chose this, a bigger floral stamp. If you don't have a big flower stamp or any big stamp whatsoever. Again, stencils or just doodling. It's not like you can't do this kind of a project if you don't have the exact same materials that I'm using. Let's put one more. Hopefully everybody's okay. I've been hearing that there's flu going around in other places as well, so hopefully you will avoid getting the bug. Okay. Now that I've been stamping with Archival ink on top of acrylic paint, which kind of seals the surface, I'm using the heat tool just to make sure that ink will dry quickly and permanently. So now there's the next step. I'll start it here, but then I actually have another piece of paper already done because this is taking maybe the longest in the making. So what I'm doing, I'm then covering rest of the background with white and just leaving the flowers to be with those vibrant colors. I'm not the first one doing this. There's like several art journalers who do this or use another color like black or blue, whatever, but just an idea. Or you could use a gel print for the initial layer or just stamping. But it's just kind of fun making something and hiding it partially, playing like hide and seek in a way. I'm using white acrylic, but it could be another color, especially if you're wanting a certain emotion or like connection. If you're doing, let's say, something about space, you could use dark blue here. Or if you want something like really lustrous, maybe golden paint even, just try different things. White is a easy option. And this is acrylic paint, but it could be white gesso as well. And also depends what you're after. If you want a complete coverage, depending the paint you're using, you might need to go over the area twice, or as there's going to be layers on top as well. So this is just the kind of the background, so you might get away with less coverage as well. But just like this, highlighting. This is PaperArtsy white Snowflake. But it could be gesso as well. But yeah, just kind of highlighting the flowers and covering the rest, so the color is only in the flowers. That's the thing here. And then by miracle of cinema, not quite, here's the already painted page. And you can see the kind of background peeking through a little bit. That's okay for me. If you want it solid white, then just add another layer. What I haven't done here though is the splashes. And if you've seen my videos before or attended the lives, then you've seen this one before. My most recent obsession with splashes, fan brush. So it's the same white acrylic paint, just a little bit diluted, and I'm splashing it here. Diluted so that it just leaves the brush a little bit easier than like if you're just using paint as it is. It's usually these big blobs, and you really need to use force to get it out of the brush. Sorry, a sip of tea again, so my voice will hold. And as I'm next doing some doodles with Posca markers, again I need to dry, unfortunately. Like so. The only time I've managed to ruin a Posca marker is actually when I was a little bit too keen to continue the project, to get it started or going, and put the marker to a wet acrylic paint, and then I wasn't able to rescue it anymore. Like with the background I was doing now, this previous one has these centers of the flowers a little bit lost. Not that good of an impression because I'm a terrible stamper, to be honest. So I'm using the marker to get them a little bit more showing. And well, as you could see, I didn't follow the exact lines. I was just doodling the shape as it was, like something in kind of this general area. Then I'm also kind of going through the edges of the flowers, depending how careful you've been with the paints. You might get away with this one, but also it adds a little bit to the make your kind of own hand style in that way, because you're just doodling, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just to highlight the edge a little bit. So I'm going around them quite quickly. Hopefully not getting too bored, or getting you too bored, that is. I actually like doodling. It's really relaxing. There we go. Oh, and maybe I should also tell you, or maybe you even know that I usually work on top of a loose piece of paper when I start a new page. I hardly ever, never say never, but hardly ever go straight into the journal and start applying paint or texture or collage, whatever. but I usually use a separate sheet of paper, and then when the page is more or less done, I then apply it, adhere it to the journal, like so. Then a few touches of white, and then we'll get going with something else. Oh, and I need to draw those circles here as well. Almost forgot about those. Let's just do a couple of these and then hurry up, because I can imagine that this is looking a little bit boring. There we go. And then I used the marker to kind of, there's this funky looking little bubbles or dots or patterns. And I kind of repeated those with the marker to the background. Just these clusters of bubbles. In a way, it's fun first making patterns to the background, covering them, and then doodling another one on top, but that's the process for me. Maybe that's enough. A couple of more here. Then I promise it's okay. Here we go. Then it's time to get this a little bit smaller. So depending on the project, I might do this sooner or later to cut it in the size that fits my journal. Sometimes I start by it, sometimes, and I guess more often, I actually then trim the paper after it's been somewhat patterned. So I have these little strips that I can then use in another project. I've written to myself that it's 19.5, so just a little strip from here. Come on. About yay wide, and then 24 on the other. So now there's a little bit more room to be cut. There. Come on. And then halfway as well. So I have an idea where the spine is going to be. Because oftentimes I make quite dimensional projects, so I need to use spiral bound journals. Otherwise, well, the binding gets ruined almost immediately. So that's why I'm then needing some kind of idea where the spiral bound or the spine is going to be. Now a little bit of washi tape to keep the two pages together, so it's easier to work over the seam at this stage. Oftentimes I do just this, so I cut it and then I again combine the two, but there is already this line, so I know where I'm standing. So I won't put, for example, if there's a person, I won't put or like this, the eyes directly on top of the seam, because then it would look funny. So I kind of can think about the composition that way. Okay, now we are actually next step on my list. I managed to do a little step by step this time for myself, like notes, because oftentimes I don't do that. And then when it's time to start the live, because I'm thinking, of course, I'm going to remember what I did. And then usually it's not like that. I'm then forgetting what I have done. So it's a little bit handy to have this cheat sheet. As her gaze is going to be on this direction, I'm wanting more air to be here, because if I would put it like this, the atmosphere is totally different, because then she's kind of staring at to the wall or edge, and then there's a lot of space here. But this one is more relaxing or more hopeful in a way. But it's what you're after. This is from an old magazine, just this picture. It might have been even from an ad. Just cut this little photo loose. Now I'm thinking if their shoulder is going to be on top. Yeah, probably a little bit crossing the seam there. I'm using double-sided tape to mount the magazine cutout in place, but you could use like a glue stick also. I haven't found the perfect one yet, so if you have any suggestions about really good glue sticks, I'm all ears. Because magazine like this paper are usually quite thin, so if you use a collage medium, that might cause the magazine cutout to buckle a lot. So that's why I'm going with a dry adhesive rather than a wet one. I'm already cutting the excess off, so it's easier to see where the edges are. Here we go. And then we need to make some layering papers. I do have them ready here, the ones I made for the sample. Do you want me to do some of them, any of them, all of them now? Because they are just kind of painting a piece of cardstock with the colors I've been using so far, plus the red. So just these I used to the background, and then the red. And then I used the same stamp set I used to pattern the background, like the little details, to add pattern on top. So it's kind of, everything goes together nicely because there's the repetition of the patterns and the colors. This one is just white paper, no paints added on top. So there's a black and white element, kind of a high contrast. Then this one, as you can see, it's this. So aqua dark egg, painted, dried, then lines on top. And then the red one, again, painted and patterned with the same black ink. So there's no additional colors coming in other than the red one. And then one additional thing, I could have used acrylic paint to stamp this one, but as I wanted kind of a crisp image, so I used instead white embossing powder with embossing ink to create one piece of kind of pattern paper with white pattern on top. So it's kind of repeating the same elements that are already in the page, but in a different form. And then, as you can see from the sample, let me grab that one then. What I did is just to cut these papers into thin little strips for the layering. So it's not kind of rocket science making these papers, but let me know if you want to see some that I make some of them or one of them, but it's just literally painting a piece of paper with acrylic and then adding the pattern on top. Sorry, a quick sip again. As there probably is a little bit of time gap going on, so I'm starting to cut these strips for layering, but I'm keeping an eye on the chat. If you want one or two or any of the papers remade, just let me know, so I'll then do that. If you are joining in and didn't hear my blabbing about the colors earlier, so I chose 4 colors for the background. I guess I mentioned in the Instagram that it was 3, but I remembered incorrectly. There was 4. So I wanted just vibrant colors for the background, like these happy summer kind of ice cream colors. So that's why I chose those. And I thought that they went together because normally I work with kind of colors near in the color wheel. So everything is kind of matchy and no mud coming. But this time I went with a little bit more gap between the colors. But still kind of a palette that you can't create that much of a mud with. And then when I had the pattern done, you saw me use white because that's a good light color, goes with anything, and black and white are kind of the 2 key colors that I usually try to include in my makes. So I chose white for this one, but then this project needed a contrast. I'm not sure if it's got to do with the black and white image or something, but I immediately saw something red here. So that's why all the other colors are kind of picked up from the project, but then I added the red to add a little bit of contrast, a little bit of something in there. There's no comment that please do the pattern paper, so I'm guessing it's okay. And just continue with this one. Maybe I'll add kind of the seam here as well. So this is just foam tape. I'm adding it here. No measuring of whatsoever, just haphazardly cutting a couple of pieces, and then I'm going to start building that kind of a little edge or fence or whatever using these strips I just cut. So not kind of cutting them beforehand to a certain size or length. Sorry. But instead I'm just adding them to the page and sorry, seeing how it goes. trying to keep them quite straight as they are, but I'm not measuring things, so they might end up being a little bit crooked, but that's okay as well. Maybe this one instead. Then that one. The pieces are kind of running low, but I have a plenty of them there when I then cut. Is this enough then, or do I need to add a little bit of tape here to make it? I kind of like that there's a little gap between this one and the edge. Kind of creates this little, oh, I know the word in Finnish now, but kind of tension. Does that make any sense in this case? Because there's a little gap between this block and that edge. And now I'm added something here, so I'm really wanting to add something here as well, kind of balance the composition that way, but not too much. Couple of, come on. And maybe to play it safe this time, I'm adding this one to the seam because there might be a little issue there coming up, but well, it is what it is. Of course, these little strips could be any pattern paper, but this is a kind of a safe way to make sure that everything is going to be really matchy because you are using the actual same patterns and colors. And then I'm thinking something here. Hello, hello, welcome. I'm just adding not the finishing touches just yet, but we are quite close of finishing this spread. Maybe the pink color, and would it be weird to have it not here, because then she looks like she's decapitated. A little bit here further down. Okay. What are we thinking? Are we thinking it's okay now, or do we need maybe that one there? Just a couple of pieces of foam tape again. And then let's put it in place. Please let me know if there's any questions. Okay, and then let's cut the excess off so it's again a little bit easier to see the actual shape without these extra bits. Here we go. Yay! Then the kind of journaling and some buttons. The journaling is from this kind of sheet. I think it's by Ranger. So there's these different quotes, but of course you could make one of these by yourself as well, either by printing or then if you have a typewriter. So double-sided tape to the back, easier to mount it like that. I'm cutting the extra off and then thinking there should maybe be a pause. And in the sample, it's kind of going over the spread. But here there's a bigger space for it. So I'm just adding it to this page this time. Or you could use your own handwriting, like just add a couple of white strips, or in this case, like yellow strips, something that's different from everything else. And then just use your own handwriting to write the journaling on top. Like so. And then some buttons to finish. Oh, these were 1 centimeter width, if you want to know. Just cut them to the same width, each and every one. So there's kind of this repetition coming from that. So there's not different widths, but they could be. There could be like a larger block, or then they could be woven, or partially woven, or no, that's looking a little bit weird. Maybe a smaller one. I'm wanting something here, but if I put the black button on her neck, it's not a good look. Maybe a bigger cluster, like a couple. Just one there and a couple here. That looks better. So a little bit of glue. One button there and a couple of here. Kind of a triangle. So I'm guessing that's it. What I then would do is to take the 2 pages apart, because there's the just tape holding them and then a piece of here. Just cut them apart and then mount them to the journal using double-sided tape. So that's where they end up. There's actually, this is relatively new, this, and there's not one page I could show except this one, because they're all coming. But like that. I'm going to do that a little bit later and then show it in in the blog. But of course I can just cut this one. Hopefully those will stay put if I put this. Let's see. Because that one is just washi tape. It's easy to remove, but now I'm guessing I'm through. And it happened what I feared, that one didn't stick anywhere. So even though it's then not mounted to anything, I'll just adhere this little piece here, so there's not going to be this gap in the color, even though it's gap in the height. So like that, and then they're going to be adhered to the journal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some new ideas or inspiration out of this. And if you have any questions, or if you're watching the recording and have any questions, just let me know in the comments or in any social media I have. So thank you so much. I'm wishing you a lovely day or evening or morning, depending where you are. And I'll be seeing you next month with another live. And if you have any wishes for that, please again let me know. Or then there's the new videos every Friday, the process ones here in my channel. So have a great July, and I'll be seeing you in August. Bye.